All right, so finding your easy, comfy seat, grab a prop to lift up the hips if you would like, or coming into kneeling if that feels better. And taking that moment, as we always do at the beginning, just to sort of settle in and set your intention. So as you begin to find your seat, prop yourself up, just beginning to notice where your hips, your sits bones are resting. Maybe create a little bit of movement as you start to find that sense of really settling down toward the earth at your base. And then maintaining that sense of groundedness at our hips, starting to slowly let the awareness draw up through the spine as you do, imagining that spine is centering itself right over the tailbone. It's lengthening between each vertebrae. And then we come all the way up to the top of the head. And as we keep that nice weightedness at the base, we imagine that growing tall from the top of the head. And then a little additional length at the back of the neck, letting the chin come in and up. Inviting a little more softness into the shoulders. And if you haven't already, maybe softening your gaze or closing your eyes. And taking a moment to let your awareness just really sit with the sensations in your physical body. So checking in with those spaces that are maybe a little tight or tired from yard work, or more sitting or less sitting. Most of us are having quite a different routine right now. And then letting your awareness transition to your breath. Really allowing your awareness to be fully present with your breath for a moment. And then letting your awareness gently settle into your thoughts and your emotions. Taking a moment to be fully present with how you're feeling this morning. Anything that maybe you would like to set aside for the next hour. And then if you would like to have an intention for your practice, maybe something you're working on, working toward, a goal in life, or someone you've been thinking about, maybe holding that thought or phrase or person in your mind or your heart space for a moment. And as we flow through our practice today and those little distractions start to come up, if you're using an intention, allowing your mind to settle back to that intention as your anchor, your way of keeping yourself in the present moment. When the mind starts to wander, bringing yourself back to your intention. And then let's move into a little bit of pranayama breath. So as always, hands can rest wherever's comfortable, or if you like, you can bring one hand to the low belly and one hand to heart center. And then beginning your expansion into your inhale. So really deepening that in-breath, filling the lungs, expanding the tissues outward, and then slowing down your exhale. And moving through a few breaths like this, maybe allowing your awareness to sit fully with the sensation of breath entering and breath leaving, or maybe bringing your mind's eye back to your intention. And either moving through a few more breaths like this, just those really deep inhales, slow exhales, or if it's interesting to you this morning, starting to bring in your breath retention. So just finding that little bit of a pause at the top of your breath when your lungs are full, and a little pause at the bottom of the breath when your lungs are empty. And gently letting go of breath control, finding a nice easy breathing rhythm. Floating the eyes open. And then we'll move through our first spinal warm-up flexion and extension, but we'll bring that stretch up into the shoulders a little bit by interlacing the fingers at the base of the skull. So starting with the spine, really, really neutral. So as we bring the hands to the back of the head, make sure we're not bending forward in the neck. We're really long, elbows reaching out to the side. Find a deep inhale as you lift the crown of the head a little further from your pelvis. And then as you exhale, drawing the navel toward the spine, let those elbows reach toward the front of your room. Let the gaze start to come down, but the bend is really coming in the middle part of the spine, not just the neck. And then inhaling, starting to draw the elbows out to the side, opening through the heart, gaze comes high. Imagine you're gonna try to touch those elbows together behind you. Exhale, rounding forward, flexion. Inhale, opening the heart, spinal extension. And find one more movement each direction after that last one, finding spine back to neutral. And then we'll keep the fingers interlaced, but reach the hands up overhead. Flip those palms so they're facing toward the ceiling. Find another deep inhale here as you stretch high, high, high. And then exhale, find a side bend to the left. Keep the right hip heavy. We'll pause this side. Imagine lengthening through those hands and all the way down through right armpit into right hip. Waiting for your next inhale, lift yourself through center, stretch, 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 stretch. Find another big inhale, reaching high. Exhale, side bend right, pause, find that stretch on the left. And waiting for that next inhale again, lifting through center, pause, find a breath, reaching high. And then release the fingertips, sweep the hands all the way around to the low back. We'll interlace the fingers behind the low back. See that the shoulders are nice and soft away from the ears. And then with your next inhale, start to just lift those hands a little further from your spine. Pause in your exhale, and then inhale. If you have further to go, lift those hands a little higher. And waiting for your next exhale, just allow those hands to slide all the way back down to the back. Unlace the fingers, just let the arms dangle beside the hips for a moment and give them a nice little shake. And then if you landed in kneeling, go ahead and come around to a seat so we can meet in bound angle. So letting your knees come out a little bit, soles of the feet meet, and having the heels far enough away from the hips that you can be nice and comfortable in sitting up tall. And then find a big inhale, create some length. With an exhale, we'll twist the heart to the left. Take that right hand across center. Reach for that left thigh or knee. Take your left fingertips to the floor behind your hip, or rest that hand or forearm on the low back. And then with those inhales, imagine lengthening the crown of the head. Exhales, either resting in your twist or maybe twisting a little further. Waiting for your next inhale to unwind through center. Your out breath will take you to the second side. Pause, find your twist. Choose your arm variation. And find your breath. Inhales create length. Exhales, pause, or maybe create space for a little more twist. Waiting for that next in-breath, we'll unwind back towards center. And then we'll move through two versions of a forward fold in our seated bound angle. So first with our long neutral spine, we'll hold that for a moment and then we'll round into it. So with hands resting wherever's comfortable, inhale into that long spine, and then exhale, draw the heart forward toward the feet, coming as far as you can go, maintaining those neutral curves in the spine. So pretty small movement for most of us. And we'll pause and take a moment just to notice with that spine long, maybe where you feel your stretch here. And then with your next exhale, rounding forward, scooping the hands to the outer edges of the feet or walking hands out toward the top of your space. We just allow that spine to fully soften, shoulders and head to melt down toward the feet. And take a moment to notice if that changed the sensation of the stretch, if one felt better or more interesting. Finding a few more breaths here. So notice if those tissues have started to relax, if maybe you could walk yourself a little further into your fold. And then coming up just a little, just enough to create space for movement. If hands are around the feet, we'll release the hands and then start to walk both hands over toward your right leg. We'll bring the belly all the way over toward that right thigh and spend a few breaths melting down over this side. Lifting up just enough to create space for movement. Slow walking hands back through center. Eventually all the way over to the left. Find a few breaths softening down over the left leg. And lifting up just enough to create space for movement. Walk yourself all the way back to center. And then when you get there, start a slow roll back toward neutral spine. When you get to the top, bring the hands back around to the low back, interlace the fingers, and then just lift the hands up away from the spine. And allowing the arms to relax. We'll keep the right knee where it is, send the left leg out long, straight knee, toes pointed toward the ceiling, and then draw that right heel in a little closer to the groin. And then trying to see that you're rooted through both sits bones. We'll find length in the spine and then start to twist the heart toward that extended left leg. And we'll do two versions again here. So first with our spine long and then rounding forward. So big inhale, length. And then as you exhale, imagine you're drawing your heart forward toward your left foot. And then also imagine you're drawing your left toes back toward your shin. And we'll pause here. And then waiting for your next exhale, go ahead and allow yourself to round down. And if you have a strap or something that you could use in place of a strap, like a shirt, you can wrap it around that foot. Or if that foot is in reach, as you round down toward that leg, maybe your hands could come to the bottom of your foot. And then we just allow the spine to fully soften, head to melt down toward left knee. And if we have the hand engaged, we'll let go of our foot or our strap. And again, thinking about just coming up just enough to create space for movement. And we'll move into the revolved variation. So we twist our heart open toward the front of our space. We bring the left arm inside the left leg. We try to stack that right shoulder over the left. And then we can rest right hand on the thigh, or if you want to bring that stretch up into the shoulder, we'll sweep it up overhead. Rotate the palm to face the floor, fingertips pointing in the direction of that extended left foot. And then find a few breaths melting down into this revolved head to knee, allowing that left armpit to reach toward left knee. And gaze can be low or gaze could be past your top arm if you have your right arm overhead. And with our next inhale, we'll start to slide ourselves all the way back up toward neutral. And we'll send that right hand to the floor behind the hip and move through your tripod as a counter pose. So just find that big, juicy back bend as you float the hips, stretch through the whole front body, and bring that left arm around behind you. And bringing the hips back down to the floor. Keep the right hand where it is for a moment. Lean yourself into that hand just enough that you can bend your left knee and bring your left heel in toward your glutes. Then coming back to neutral spine, see if you can get that left hip all the way down onto your mat. Might not get there, that's okay. And then we'll turn our heart to the right, bring our hands down on either side of our knee. And then with that left hip close to or touching the mat, start to walk your hands away from you as far as you can come without floating that hip. And then continuing to walk the hands away, let that hip lift as much as feels good. Just allow your belly to draw down toward your thigh. Find whatever feels good. Starting a slow walk back up. When you get to the top, turning the heart back toward the front of your space. And then we'll bring both legs out and find some seated windshield wipers. So lean back a little, find some support in your hands, find those wide heels, bent knees, and then either slow, controlled back and forth, or get a little momentum going. And then we'll pause. We'll send that right leg out long, bring that left heel in toward the groin. And then I'm sure everybody's favorite game, can I remember everything that we did on the first side? So first finding that length, and then we'll twist our heart toward that extended right foot. First keeping the spine long, reaching heart forward, pull those toes back toward the shin. Noticing your stretch or noticing your sensation. And then with an exhale, as you start to release and round down, walking your hands out toward your foot or grabbing your shirt or strap, just noticing how that changes. And again, does one feel more therapeutic, more beneficial? And you're practicing on your own at home. Which one might feel juicier? Releasing the hands. If hands are engaged, sliding up just enough to create space to move into revolved head to knee. So we'll rotate the heart open, stack that left shoulder on the right arm inside right leg. Choose whatever variation feels best for that left arm. And find a few breaths, relaxing that right armpit down toward the right knee. Using an in-breath, starting to lift your way back up as you're ready, flowing through your tripod as your counter pose. So find that support in your left hand, point that right toe, press the heel, float the hips, swing that right arm around, find your back bend. And we'll bring the hips back down. Keep a little support in that hand so you can lean over enough to bend that knee and bring the heel in. And then as much as you can, try to reach that right hip down onto the mat. We'll turn our heart toward our left hip, bring our fingertips down, and then walking forward just a little as far as we can go, keeping that right hip down for now. And then allowing the hands to walk out as far as feels good. Let that right hip just do whatever comes naturally as you melt the belly down toward left thigh. Beginning to walk the hands back in, lifting yourself back up. When you get to the top, find some of those seated windshield wipers. So leaning back a little, bringing the legs out wide, bend into the knees, and lift and lower. And lifting the legs back up, we'll come around to kneeling. So just picking one heel, drawing it over to the other side, tucking both feet back toward the hips, and then coming around. And I'm going to just show a couple prop options. You don't have to have a block or a yoga blanket. You could use anything. But we're going to be in kneeling for a moment. And for some of us, that's already pretty intense on the knees or a pretty intense stretch. So if that's you, you can take a pillow or a throw or whatever you've got and bring a little more space between hips and heels. Or if you have something like a yoga block, you can bring it underneath the sits bones to bring a little more height that way. So we're either right down on our mat, hips to heels, where we've got a little bit of support. And just notice what's happening in your knees and the fronts of your thighs, your quads. And again, if this is already kind of a lot of sensation or stretch, we can just stay here. Or we can start to lean back, bring the fingertips to the floor behind the hips, and then trying to keep the cervical spine in line with the rest of the spine. So not letting it hang way back or chin way to chest. We're just gonna walk the hands back behind us until you find a stretch for the quads. If you are really open in your quads and you've got the hands way back and you still don't have a stretch, you can come down onto your forearms. And then again, just checking in, keeping the neck active, and we'll pause here in whichever version you landed in. And then starting to slowly lift our way back up. So if we're leaning back pretty far, we're down on forearms, we'll find support in one hand first. So we can lift back up onto the other hand, use the support of the hands to start to draw ourselves all the way back up. And then when you get to the top, just move a little bit in the spine. This feels good. And then we'll lift up into a high kneel. So lifting the hips up over the knees, we'll tuck the toes. And we'll move through two versions of camel here. So first, bringing the hands around to the tops of the glutes, pressing the hips forward, let elbows draw back, opening the heart, and again, keeping the neck nice and active, so not letting the head dangle. And then notice how your lower back feels here with hands to hips. And then start to slowly lift your way back up toward neutral. And then as a counter pose, just bring the hands to heart center, interlace, flip those palms to reach away, round forward, gaze down. And then lifting back to neutral, bringing the hands around to the tops of the glutes. If that was already pretty intense for the low back, we'll move through that same version again. Hands to glutes, pressing hips forward, heart opens, elbows draw back. If you're looking for something a little different, spine is up for it. Maybe try releasing the hand from one side, bringing it back to the heel. Releasing hand from the other side, bringing it to the heel. Really staying open in the heart, active in the neck. Camel pose, Ustrasana. And then if we're hands to heels variation, we'll use the weight of one arm to help start to lift out. So we release the hand from one side, sweep it all the way around toward the front of our mat. Start to reach forward with that hand so we can release the hand from the other heel, bringing that hand around, lifting all the way to neutral. And then we'll all untuck the toes and slide the hands down to the thighs. And then slow round over into a child's pose. So softening through the spine, sliding the hands down to the mat, slow walking your way over. And then from here, lifting up to tabletop. Pause in your tabletop for a moment and just move in the spine in any way that feels good. So cat tilts or side bends or jump ropes. And then we'll pause. And keeping the right knee where it is, we're gonna slide the left leg back behind us, lift the knee, bring that leg all the way out to the side, flip the toes to point toward the front of your mat, keep that sole of the foot flat on the floor, and then see what it feels like to start to send your hips back toward your right heel, if you can find a stretch that way, or come back up, scoot your left foot closer to the top of your mat, then sink hips back toward right heel. Starting to slow lift your way back up, shoulders over wrists. We'll slide that left foot back in line with the hip and then bring your left foot across your right, so it's just off the right side of your mat. Bring your gaze all the way around to that foot, finding a side stretch on the left. Bringing the gaze forward, allowing that foot to come back in line with the hip. Bring the knee down, find a little movement for your spine. And then moving through the second side, right foot slides back, we bring it out to the side, flip those toes. Maybe you can leave that foot even with the left knee, come back and find a stretch, or maybe you want to bring that right foot closer to the front of your mat, then sink your hips back. Lifting your way back up, shoulders over wrists. Bring that foot back in line with the hip and then move through your side bend in the opposite direction. Finding your way back to tabletop, flex and extend or side bend or jump rope the spine. And back in tabletop, we'll lift the left hand, bring it palm face up under the sternum and slide into thread the needle. So that hand slides to the right, we bring left shoulder and temple down onto the mat. Notice how that feels, and then if you want to add something different, walk right fingertips toward the top of your mat, or sweep that right arm around to the low back, bend the elbow, rest the back of the hand or forearm on the low back, and then see if you could twist that right shoulder open a little higher toward the ceiling. And if right arm is in a bind or extended, we'll bring that hand back around under the shoulder. Press into that hand, slide the left arm out. We'll lift all the way to a twist in the opposite direction. Lifting the left hand, turning the heart to the left. And bringing that hand back down under the shoulder. Take that right palm, face up under the sternum. Slide that hand under opposite arm. Shoulder and temple find the mat. Add whatever variation feels good for your left arm. And if left arm is in a bind or extended, go ahead and start to bring that arm back under shoulder so we can use the support of that hand. Press all the way up to a twist in the opposite direction. And letting that hand come down. If you're near the top of your mat, scoot yourself back a little. We'll keep the hips over the knees and walk the hands forward for puppy pose. So either walking your hands out a little ways, coming down onto the elbows, and then crossing the forearms and resting forehead on forearms. Or if shoulders are up for it, you're feeling pretty open, it's part of your practice, sliding those hands all the way out until chest and chin or chest and third eye come down onto your mat. Start to slowly release, walking the hands back in toward the shoulders. Moving through your tabletop and then coming up to downward facing dog. So creating just a little more space between palms and knees. We'll tuck the toes, lift the tailbone, and really stretching through the calf. So letting one heel really actively press toward the earth as the other knee bends. Find a breath that side. Switching, other heel pressing toward the earth, opposite knee soft. And then picking up the pace, pedaling the feet a few times. And finding stillness in down dog. Grounding in through the right foot. We'll inhale the left leg back for tail of the dog. And then open up your hips to the left. Let your knee bend. Let your toes fall behind. And extending through that heel, squaring the hips, big inhale. As you exhale, bring that knee forward to the same side wrist, and we'll bring it down for pigeon prep. So knee connects just behind the wrist. We'll lower that right knee, And then if you'd like, you can keep those left toes pointing back toward the front of the right hip for that more gentle version, or more traditionally, we would bring that shin parallel to the top of our mat. Sole of the left foot parallel to the long edge of our mat. And then we start to bring the right leg back so the hips come down. Grab a prop for your left glute if you like. And then we'll spend a moment in a lifted version before we melt over. So finding support for your hands or fingers. We really open through the heart, extend through the lumbar spine. And then if you're not there already, go ahead and let those left toes draw back toward the front of your right hip. Lower yourself down a little more, adjust props as needed, and then just round yourself forward into whatever feels good. Rounding down over that leg, walking the hands away, supporting your forearms or your head on a prop, or just softening all the way down onto your mat. Taking a moment to notice the breath. And as you exhale, imagine softening into the tissues of the hips and the low back, letting everything relax toward the support of your props or your mat. Beginning to lift the head, release the hands so they can walk back in just in front of that left knee. We'll bring the right foot in a little so we can tuck the right toe. Lift the right knee, getting ready to slide all the way back to three-leg dog or tail of the dog. So we activate that right leg, lift the left leg, send it all the way back behind us. Reach through the heel, pull through the toe, hips square. You can open up to the side. You can draw some knee circles. And finding your way back to your down dog, pedaling the feet for a moment. Finding your foundation. Inhaling the right leg back, hips square for a moment. Opening up to the right, bend the knee, let the toes fall behind. Squaring the hips, extend through the heel, big inhale. Exhale, knee to wrist. Gently set that knee down. Decide if you would like those right toes pointing back toward the front of the hip, or if you want to go ahead and bring that shin forward so it's parallel to the top of your mat. Lower the left knee, untuck the toe, start to bring the hips back and down. Grab a prop to support right glutes, and then pressing into fingertips or hands, open through the heart, lift through the crown of the head. And if you're not there already, go ahead and allow that right leg to soften a little bit, that foot to draw back closer toward the front of the left hip. Adjust your props as needed, as you maybe bring the hips a little closer to the floor. And then round, roll over again. Just whatever feels juicy here. Support yourself as feels good. Starting to lift your way back up, sliding the hands in. Find that support in the hands. Activate the back leg. Bring it forward just a little. And with the toes tucked, we'll float that knee. Lift the right leg, send that right leg all the way back to your three-leg dog. And then again, just make this whatever version or whatever movement feels good. So maybe hips are square. Maybe you open up to the side. Maybe you add some movement. And making your way back through your downward facing dog. And then coming down into tabletop, but leaving the toes tucked. Now we'll move into foot stretch. So if you already know you want to adjust your feet, go ahead and adjust your feet. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, with toes tucked, start to send your hips back toward your heels and see if you can find a stretch. If you get all the way back, hips to heels, not much of a stretch. Bring yourself forward enough that you can reach back with your hand on the same side. Pull your toes in closer to your knee. Set them back down on your mat. Then press your hips back toward your heels. If you still need a little more stretch, start to walk your hands in toward your knees, eventually lifting the weight of your torso up over your hips. And if we're lifted, we'll start to slow roll our way back over until we can bring the hands back down to the mat, walking forward again toward tabletop, just long enough to untuck the toes. And then sending the hips back to the heels, finding child's pose or widening the knees, toes point toward one another, wide knee child's pose. Coming back to the sensation of your breath. And with those exhales, imagining relaxing and releasing all the soft tissues down toward the support of the earth. And option if you would like to stay in child's pose for final relaxation, maybe stay here or go ahead and start to make your way over onto your back or any other posture that feels good. And then if you're still in child's pose or whatever posture you landed in, take a moment just to bring your awareness back to the spaces where you are connected to your floor or your props. And again, coming back to that sense of relaxing and releasing everything toward the support of the earth. Full inhales, easy exhales as you soften and let go. And then allowing the breath to completely let go. Allowing the mind to rest empty, or if you like, maybe returning to your intention, holding that word or person or image in your mind as you enjoy a moment of stillness. Gently beginning to deepen the breath. And then, and then inviting some subtle movements back into the body. Maybe finding a stretch. And then eventually, if you are in child's pose, starting your slow roll up. If you're on your back, finding knees to chest, moving through fetal position, or rocking your way up. Settling into an easy seat for a moment. Finding soft gaze or eyes closed, shoulders relaxed, hands resting wherever's comfortable. Taking that moment to tune into the physical sensations, soft tissues, joints, bones. How are you feeling? Taking a moment to tune in to the sensation of your breath. And if you like, maybe noticing any changes in thoughts or emotions. And setting the intention for anything you would like to carry off of your mat this morning and out into the rest of your day. And meeting with eyes open, find your big inhale to sweep the hands high. Exhale to bring the hands to heart center. Thank you. Namaste.